All right, you guys, I am so happy to bring another interview to the Robertson Tribe channel. I want to introduce you guys to Letty Feltenberger. I had the pleasure of coming upon her Instagram page about her journey and with her son and her family about just living a more natural, holistic, crunchy lifestyle and how she has been able to heal her son of eczema and really help with autoimmune issues for herself. And she just seems like a wonderful woman. And we are just parents and people that just want to help our families as much as we can and learn from one another. And so I thought she was a wonderful person to get to know and to interview for the channel. So thank you, Letty, for your time. We are both stay-at-home moms, and so we never know what's going to happen if
Right.
kids are gonna come running in or whatever. But ultimately, we are here to have a conversation about keeping our families as healthy as we can without feeling really overwhelmed. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, so can you just introduce yourself a little bit and your family and how you got started in this holistic journey?
Yeah. To start with, thanks for having me here.
Absolutely.
Um, so my name is Letty. I am a stay-at-home mom, and I have one little boy who's 3 years old. And I initially started getting into the holistic scene, this lifestyle, like low tox living type deal when I had my son. Before I had him, I was on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I just didn't know any better, had no clue what low tox even was,
Me
like
too.
was not living, yeah, was not living anywhere near a clean lifestyle. Which now looking back, I wish I knew better because then that would have probably helped with pregnancy and like everything that goes on during that. But once we had him, we were a lot more conscious of the things that we were having in our house, what we were exposing him to. And it wasn't until he was around 2 to 4 months that we really started to dig into what this lifestyle was about, because that's when we started to notice he started developing eczema. He started having health issues. He had reflux really bad. So there was all these things that were going on with my newborn. And I'm like, what? This doesn't seem right. This doesn't sound like the way things are supposed to go with a new baby. So it started to catapult me into all of this. And I feel like once you open that first door and go down that first rabbit hole, there's just no going back, like you cannot unsee or unhear everything that you know. And now since then, I want to say the last 2-ish years has really been like a time to buckle down and get into the nitty gritty of going about healing, all of us, honestly, myself, my husband, and my son. And obviously he took precedence over anybody else.
Absolutely.
But really seeing all the things that he was going through and he was struggling with already as a baby is really what pushed me into this lifestyle.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So when I stumbled upon your account on Instagram, what really captured me first, because it was like, oh, a suggested page that you might um, was in your bio, it said like healed my son of eczema. And I know I've read so much stuff. We've all read so much stuff, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
some people are like, it's gut health, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. It can be a combination of all sorts of things.
Right.
But my son, my last child, he literally came out of the womb covered in
Oh,
eczema. I've never
sweet
had eczema.
boy.
I grew up as well, like standard American diet, all the regular chemicals you'd buy at the grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
house, all this stuff. Like I was totally jaded. Like I had no idea, just no idea.
Right.
And so when now my second born, Mia, when she was born, she developed tiny little patches, just little patches of eczema as a baby that, you'd put some cream on and it would pretty much be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then she hasn't had it really since at all. But Eli, I mean, he literally came out of the womb covered in it. And I have
Wow.
pictures of him. I'll have to see if I don't know if I want to post them because they're sad.
Yeah.
He would be wearing like a cotton, like nighty zippy thing. and he would have, for years he had like a C, like this huge C of eczema. He had it all over his eyelids. And then I would like unzip his thing, and it was literally from the neck down to his ankles, just red, inflamed. And at the time, my husband and I were just like, this is, who has eczema in our family? This is genetic, like,
right.
there can be like a proclivity to that, right? Like, my uncle has it really bad, and some of his family members have it too. And so I was like, oh, well, you just got the genetic, oh, sorry, kid, but it was excruciating. And when you see your babies, when you see your children suffering, like, as parents, compassionate parents, can't say all parents, but compassionate parents that want, there's not the greatest parents out there, but I'm just saying, the ones who care, they want to help. And right, we are willing to read and dive deep. And that's why I found you so relatable, because, I was like, oh my goodness, like, she gets it. And I loved what you said about, you can't unsee what, right. And that's why I tell, like, I don't know if you've dived into my channel or my page at all, but my husband and I eat a carnivore diet.
Right.
And my kids eat keto. And, when you start doing that research, that, the nutritional research, and then the environmental research and stuff, I tell my friends all the time, because they think I'm crazy, like the way we choose to eat and think.
Yeah. We're the black sheep.
Exactly. You're a bunch of black sheep. I was like, you can't unknow. I can't unknow what I know now. And I was like, the science and the studies behind it were actually legitimately done. Like, they're not bought out by Coca-Cola. It's not, these studies aren't bought out by Procter and Gamble. Like, this stuff was legitimately done with no bias, with no nothing. And so, so thank you for, I know, like, it's that trigger point, right? That, like, we need to do something more.
Right.
So can you tell us a little more about how you healed your son's eczema, and like the story that goes with that? And you also mentioned some behavioral issues.
Yeah, he had, so it feels really weird for me to say this out loud, because it was a really off-putting moment in our lives when we were, headed with this. So we originally started seeing, when he was born, Western medicine pediatrician. That's all we knew. We had no clue what holistic living was, that you could even see a naturopath, any of that stuff, right? So we started our journey out with pediatricians until he was about 9 months old. And throughout that entire time, we would bring up, like, he's got reflux, his eczema is just getting worse. Like, every time I nurse him, he flares up, and it's just like a ton of inflammation all over his body. His face would be full of just like patches and inflammation, and his back was full. And they would tell us at first, oh, well, that's just from him sleeping on his back. He's sweating at night, and that's it. Just put some cream on it and he'll be fine. And then going back and forth, it turns out, okay, well, it's a food allergy, so you need to see an allergist now. Okay, so we go see an allergist, and the allergist tells us he's not worried about a little eczema, that it's going to clear up and he's going to grow out of it. And that didn't sit well with me. Like, that doesn't feel
I'm surprised they suggested an allergist, because I tried to get Eli tested for allergies. And my pediatrician, a great one in our area that everyone likes, right?
Sure.
The waiting list and all the things. His office just told me, oh, we don't do any allergy testing until they're over two to 2.5 years old, because it will just, like, it's inaccurate. So I'm kind of surprised that you were told to do an allergist when, at 9 months.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very strange experience, because it was at that time, I had no clue what was going on. I just knew that my son was going through all of these things. Right. And from there, I also noticed that he had a lot of mucus in his stool. So I'm like, there's something going on inside. Reflux, mucus, eczema, food sensitivities. Like, there's something else going on that we don't know. Like, you're not giving me the answer to. So they sent us to a GI specialist. We went to see the GI specialist. He did like a 5-second exam and said, he's fine, go home. And from there, I was like, I just feel lost. I feel like there's something going on. And something told me to start looking into the inserts because we were on the childhood schedule up until he was 9 months because that's all we knew, right? That's what
Yeah,
we were told was going to keep our baby healthy and
absolutely.
everything was going to be fine, yada, yada. And so we started to look into the inserts and we started to notice that eczema was one of the really common side effects of those. And we started to look at the ingredients. And from there, we're like, okay, this is probably what's causing a lot of what's going on with him, right? All of the toxins going into his body. So from there, we stopped doing that and we went to see a functional medicine practitioner.
Cool.
And she was able to do a GI map to look at what was going on internally, like a stool test. They took a look at food sensitivity to see what he had as far as triggers going. Um, he had sensory issues at that point. Like once we got to functional medicine, because it took me a few months to actually find somebody that would see him.
Mm,
He was a little over a year old by then,
okay.
and she got him a pretty good ways away. But once he turned two, like he was at the point where even though we were working on healing his gut, even though we were working on removing trigger foods, even though we were working on removing toxins that he was being exposed to, he was still dealing with sensory issues. He wasn't sleeping at night. His eczema would not budge. It wasn't completely gone. Um, he had food aversions to certain textures that he just would not touch. His meltdowns and his tantrums were just explosive, and it would be like an all day thing where it would just be nonstop, constant dysregulation. And then he was in myofunctional therapy at the time, and his therapist said that he was showing signs of autism,
What
that
is,
certain things that we were seeing.
I've never heard that before. What is myofunctioning therapy?
So, myofunctional therapy is so it's a form of therapy for the jaw, the
Okay.
tongue, and the palate of the mouth. So it's meant to help with strengthening those muscles to prevent mouth breathing, basically. So he was mouth breathing at that point,
Okay.
and it's meant to help strengthen that so that there's no mouth breathing, and so that you're not
Yes, your brain
having,
knows and
yeah, so
everything.
that your jaw's not developing smaller than it's supposed to be, and then you have issues later on. But she was noticing those things that I mentioned, and she said that it was probably a good idea to get him into an occupational therapist evaluation to see what was going on, because those are signs of autism. Not always signs, but those are signs. So you really want
Right.
to make
You're
sure that
not
you're on
doctors.
top of it.
Like throw that out there. We're not doctors. We're not offering medical advice. We're just sharing our experiences with our kids and how changing our lifestyle. I should have started the video with that. Like
Yeah, right.
our lifestyle has
Just
benefited us and our families a lot. So we're just sharing our side.
yeah.
Um,
So
okay, so yeah, that is a lot.
mhm,
And I could see some haters out there saying things like, "Oh, your kid's 2 years old. Of course they're having tantrums, and of course
mhm,
having meltdowns and
yeah.
all the things." But I feel like as a mother, you know what a typical boohoo meltdown is, and then you
Mhm.
know what an explosive, totally, like I don't know if you've ever read the book. Of course, I don't have it right on me, and I can't think of it. Uh, it was a brain book. I'll probably like flash a picture up or something.
Mhm.
Um, uh, I don't know, but like the amygdala like explodes, and they
Oh yeah,
say,
are you talking about the whole brain
you're
child?
that's it. Thank
Yeah.
you. The whole brain child. Love that book. Right. And like you're flipping your lid. That's why I always use
Mhm.
child. She's a perfectionist. She gets very overwhelmed with big feelings. And I used to be the same exact way. And so
Mhm.
I'm like, oh my gosh, my poor mother and what she had to deal with, because what I have to deal with now is just crazy sometimes. But yeah, and we always say, is our lid flipping? Like, is the lid coming up? Like we use like
Right.
signal, and she's like, oh, she comes up to me with this big hand. I'm like, and she goes like this, and I'm like, okay. I was like, let's breathe, like coping mechanisms, right? And I was like, good job, you walked away and you didn't like punch your brother in the face, like good job.
Right.
But yeah, like as a parent
Mhm.
what's a normal, tantrum or whatever, and
Yeah.
then what is just out of this world,
Mhm.
crazy, not normal. Um,
100%.
And so, okay, so you found the functional medicine doctor to
Hmm.
help to a certain point. And then did you say then you went to someone new?
So at that point, I started to kind of do a little more digging into what was actually going on, right? Because I'm like,
Okay.
there's got to be something else that's missing here, right? There's a piece of the puzzle that's not here that I'm missing that I need to find. And I started scrolling through the internet, just digging more. I started scrolling through Instagram, and I came across another mom who was using a heavy metal detox to detox her daughter, who was nonverbal at the time. And her daughter started speaking. Her daughter passed parasites during the process. And it made me look more into it. So I'm like, okay, she's dealing with some of the things that my son is dealing with. So I need to look into this more. And I had a friend at the time who was using the same product. And I'm a very skeptical mom. Like, I'm not that mom who's just like, okay, yes, I'm going to use that and that's it. Like, I'm going to sit on it for months and figure out what it is that is, that it's God or what the deal is with this before I actually dive into it. Right. And so I ran it across his functional nurse practitioner, and she was like, yeah, I'm all for it. Try it. Let me know how it goes. And we tried it. And within 2 weeks, the inflammation started going down in his face.
Wow.
Within like a month, his eczema was gone. He started sleeping through the night. His sensory issues went away. Like all of these things started to resolve. And I was like, okay, it's clicking for me now. It was his toxic load. It was all of these things that were being held in his body that his body couldn't release. And then I just went down another rabbit hole after that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm so glad that you found that. I did look on your Instagram and you
Mm-hmm.
have links to the products that you
Mm-hmm.
use. We can always link that below in the video if anyone wants to do more research. A girlfriend of mine, now she is super crunchy, like
Mm-hmm.
super, probably even more than me.
Yeah,
Love.
there's a spectrum.
There's a
That
spectrum,
looks
right?
like.
It's hilarious. So my sister-in-law that I just saw a few days ago, she's like, so I'm lightly toasted and
Oh,
you're crunchy. I've never heard that before. It was hilarious. And
that's
I was like,
hysterical.
okay. I was like,
He
again,
gets it
there's
though.
no judgment on your, it's a journey, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to start somewhere. And if it starts with
Right.
your laundry detergent or it starts with your deodorant, you know,
Mm-hmm.
then you slowly make changes. Otherwise, it just becomes too much, right? And
Yeah.
so, um, my girlfriend, like I was saying, she has 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think she had 3 at the time, but I heard that she was doing a heavy metal detox, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what product she used, but she said, and I mean, I didn't. I was thinking, really, like she's already like so like no processed. Excuse
Mm-hmm.
me, no processed foods, no, all the things like wooden toys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't watch TV, like all sorts of things. And she said she noticed a significant difference in the
Mm-hmm.
behavior of, she has 3 girls and a boy. Like she noticed a significant behavioral difference in her kids. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, I was like, if she's having,
Mm-hmm.
if she's seeing such difference, being that I think she's like super clean, right? And everything.
Yeah.
What would this do? I haven't done it yet on my kids, but I've
Mm-hmm.
definitely been considering it. And just like like you don't you don't just like give your kid anything.
Right.
Like really
Exactly.
want to think about it. Like we've, we're coming up on the 2-year mark of our kids being
Mm-hmm.
clean, meat-based keto.
Mm-hmm.
And then my husband and I being carnivore, um, and whatnot. And then, but and so like that, we've seen huge changes in that, right? And
Right.
what triggered me to laugh was because over Easter, so on holidays and birthdays,
Mm-hmm.
we go to someone's birthday party. We try to
Mm-hmm.
encourage the kids to be like, hey, let's like steer towards this,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But we're also, I don't want to like develop eating disorders in my
Right.
kids. And so we're always like, how does this make you feel? How does this make you
Mm-hmm.
feel? And I
Yeah.
have
Awareness.
like, I feel nothing. I got one kid just like, psh, like she could eat, Mia could eat the freaking garbage can and like nothing would happen. And then Eden and Eli,
Mm-hmm.
they would, and they're like, they got diarrhea, they're bloated, they
Mm.
gross. And I'm like, see, this, so, for one kid, like it really, so anyway, Easter, we let them eat what they wanted. Like family brings food. They got all sorts of different types of candy that
Mm-hmm.
we know, that we don't do candy, but if we do, we try to do, like the dye free,
Mm-hmm.
like Lily's chocolate or something like that. Um,
Right.
and my kids had epic issues
Mm.
either that night or the next day. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I were like, absolutely no more Easter candy. Like, what is it? Two of the kids had like horrible nightmares that night, and my oldest had like a crazy OCD.
Mm. Right.
My husband has a lot of high functioning anxiety, so we understand like there is a genetic component to that. But we saw like it almost seemed like it was like a psychotic break. Like it was kind of crazy.
Right.
That evening of Easter, she's like, she was thinking about something, like obsessively thinking about something after we
Mm-hmm.
put her in bed. And then she was just doing like these crazy OCD tendencies, like going to the
Mm.
bathroom 4 or 5 times. Like Josh was like, oh my gosh. He's like, we need to have a conversation. Like we need to figure out but she's never had like anything like that. And I was like, well,
Right.
she ate a peep. She ate how much,
Mm-hmm.
dessert did she eat? How much, bread and whatever else did she eat,
Yeah.
that day? She's been totally fine since that night. And we've had conversations and stuff. And then I don't know if it was Eli or Mia had like horrible nightmares. And then
Mm-hmm.
the following day, so Mia had the horrible nightmares and was like just totally freaking out. And then the following day after Easter, um, Eli had one of those epic freak out
Mm.
tantrums. He's 6 years old. I mean, I understand a 6-year-old still has
Right.
issues,
But not to that extent.
not to that
Mm-hmm.
extent. I was like, whoa. Just it was out of, and
Yeah.
we
And
knew
people
the food.
don't
We knew it
realize,
was food.
yeah, people don't realize how much food impacts a child. Like even as adults, when we eat bad food, we can feel it in our body. Like we feel sluggish or we get brain fog and, like inflammation in our body. But imagine what that's doing to a child who's still developing.
Right. And
Like
their bodies
it's
are so small. And so I
right.
know my family and my friends think that we're super restrictive and crazy, but I was like, I don't have, like we've solved a lot of behavioral issues and,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that through eating, cleaner and stuff like that.
Right.
And, but yeah, I've been thinking about detoxing the kids as well, just to see like what happens. Um,
Right.
in the coming months, if I do that, I'm sure I'll make it. But you also mentioned on your channels, or your page, as I was scrolling through, that you either do or you solved an autoimmune issue. Can you tell us about that for yourself?
Yeah, so I have Hashimoto's and I was diagnosed in 2015. So it's been almost 10 years now that I've had that going on. And that's kind of why like I've got that a little bit of the inflammation still going on here because it's fairly newer that I'm working on it.
Mhm.
Um, and I saw what was going on with him and I saw how this resolved his issues. And it started to make me think like, okay, is is the toxic load also causing what's going on with me? Like where does this come from, right? Because he's got his own issues and these are all precursors to what can develop into things like autoimmune or other
Right.
chronic illness, right? So I started to really like get into it and look and see where these things could stem from, where the root cause comes from. And after I gave birth to him, alongside the Hashimoto's, I also developed like a hormonal imbalance and insulin resistance. So it was a whole bunch of things just going on within my body that I felt like I was just, well, I didn't just feel, I was in fight or flight just all day, every day, from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed. And then it was just a terrible night every night from there. Like I just wouldn't sleep at night. I'd have a hard time going to sleep. I gained a ton of weight out of nowhere and it's just been like sticking around, would not come off, right? Brain fog, my joints were hurting, my whole body was in pain. Like it was hard some days to even get out of bed, But of course,
Mhm.
you're a stay-at-home mom. You have to get out of bed. You have to take care of your kids and, get all that stuff done that needs to get done in the house. And after I got him situated and he was in a good place, I'm like, why am I letting myself go into a place where I'm not taking care of myself too, right? I also deserve to feel good. So I started seeing someone as well to kind of get that situated. And I started using the same detox to kind of lower my toxic load. And after starting that, I dropped like a few pounds worth of inflammation within like a week or two.
Awesome.
And my body doesn't hurt anymore. I'm able to sleep better at night. My mood isn't all over the place. And it was just like astounding to me how something as simple as removing toxins from your body can have that kind of impact on your health, right? Because you don't realize how
It's such a
much
fast amount of
buildup. Yeah, it's crazy. And obviously, like I've only this is another thing too. I think I get a lot of questions about like, okay, well, how fast is this supposed to work? Because we're in a day and age where I feel like people really want that instant gratification, right? They want it
exact
now. And I explain to people all the time, like, I've had this disease for 10 years. I don't expect to resolve it overnight, right? It's going to take a while to heal from everything that has been accumulated and all of damages that's been done, right? Um, so I've only been doing this personally for like a year, and already I've seen such dramatic differences. And I know in 5 years, it's going to be even better, right?
That's great.
And I like to think of it as a marathon, not a race, right? You're doing things, you're unlearning is a huge thing because like with our kids, they don't know any better. This is what we're teaching them from the get-go. With
Right.
us, we're unlearning all of the things that we learned throughout our lives, the bad diet, the habits, all of these things that we did before that we now have to cut out of our lives. It's a little more difficult to navigate as an adult, right? So it's going to take a little longer. Um, but yeah, significant difference just changing that stuff.
That's fabulous. Have you ever heard of Dr. Barry or his wife, Nisha Berry on YouTube?
I don't think I have.
I would definitely suggest that. So, being that we eat carnivore and keto,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Barry is a physician and
Mm-hmm.
um, he has like changed the lives of my family. So, when we decided to change our diet, I just did it just um, to just be on the same page as my husband. Like I
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote didn't have any problems, that I knew of, I
Right.
was fine or whatever. But my husband was having like really crazy, uncontrollable blood pressure.
Mm.
And he is not one for doctors and he's not one for medications. And so he just went on YouTube and he looked up like solving like your blood pressure naturally. And
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Barry came up with all of his videos. And he is just and he has a book. He's actually rewriting his book. So I would say
Mm-hmm.
if you get his book, which is on audio, and then we own like 3 copies of his book and we give it out to
Right.
people. And then we have it on audio. Like I've listened to it twice. It's excellent. But he's rewriting it to add like, it's called, oh my gosh, of course I can't think of it, right? Like lies that my doctor told me, all
Mm-hmm.
the things that we were all right habit, like you're always like don't eat salt raises your blood pressure. That's
Right.
actually not true at all.
Yeah, false.
And totally false. And so, but yet we still have doctors today perpetuating these lies.
Mm-hmm.
um and so he debunks like all the stuff, cites his sources, like all these, I mean it's a great thing. So he's rewriting his book right now with to add
Mm-hmm.
40 more lies
Oh,
like
geez. I'm sure
right,
it's not that difficult,
right. So
honestly, to
maybe
find
for
them.
his new book, right. And so maybe make wait, but anyway, his wife Nisha, she has Hashimoto's and she
Mm-hmm.
has put her Hashimoto's in remission eating
Mm-hmm.
a meat-based keto. She is not carnivore. She's never been carnivore. She's like, but her husband is. But she's by eating super clean and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. I just think, it's a resource. You can watch his videos.
Right.
His wife does food blogs and talks all about like her Hashimoto's journey and how she's completely and solved infertility issues uh,
Mm-hmm.
through diet changes, right?
Right.
Living cleaner. And,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, she's a meat based keto, but she's definitely not carnivore. And so Yeah, because you have Hashimoto's. I was like, oh, what a great resource. But yeah, look up Dr.
Yeah,
Barry.
definitely.
Millions of followers on YouTube, and he's not a corrupt guy, which is great.
That's
And
always a plus.
it's always a plus. It's always a plus. And his videos are very entertaining. My husband and I really enjoy looking that up um, or watching his stuff. But okay, so the Hashimoto's, you
Hmm.
detoxed, that helped you a ton. Obviously, changing your diet slowly. Do Where was I going to go with that? Um, I don't know. Let me let me get back to my questions in case my thought. Um,
I feel that.
okay, well,
It's
this will
so
kind of
easy.
lead into what I was saying. So, the natural holistic space, right? Because I get this all the time with family and friends that they live the standard American diet, and that's fine.
Right.
No joke there. But they're just like, it's so overwhelming. Like, where do
Hmm.
you start with this? Like, I, so what would you recommend being the first items or steps people can start to detox their lifestyle if they're interested in being like, okay, I want to be a little more clean? Like, where should we start? Because this is going to take years of your life. I
Hmm.
don't, and that's why when you try to jump in, it's like jumping into homeschooling. You really start small and
Right.
work up to more. Um,
Hmm.
Otherwise, you get overwhelmed, you get burnt out, and you just fizzle. And so,
Yeah.
what would you recommend for busy parents that are wanting to provide a better, holistic lifestyle for their kids and whatnot? But where should they start?
So, so I'm that person that spiraled because I went way too into it at first, like because of everything that was going on. I'm like, all right, I got to get rid of this. I got to get rid of this. Swap, 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 swap. And it's definitely one of those things that can be very overwhelming, and you don't want to overwhelm yourself because then, like you said, you burn out and
And you
it
also
makes
don't
you
want
not want
to
to
bankrupt
go.
yourself either. Like,
Yeah,
if you
right,
jump in too quick, like you're spending ridiculous amounts of money and
right.
things you have no idea what you're really buying and if it even works.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. So I would say the first thing that if I could go back, if the first thing that I would get rid of is fragrance. Number one, first and foremost. So I feel like a lot of people have like Glade plugins or candles going in the house, or like spraying perfume on themselves, right? So all of those things are endocrine disruptors, and I'm pretty sure that that's exactly why I got to the point that I'm at now, right? You start putting all this stuff in your body, you don't realize it, and you end up with an autoimmune disease. So fragrance, stuff like that, like candles or anything that's supposed to make your house smell good,
Fat
I would
softener.
get rid of. Yeah. Fabric softeners, like laundry detergent, like any fragrance that isn't anything that you have, I would say that is going to be the number one thing for me personally if I could go back, and it's going to make the biggest impact because you don't realize how many things fragrance actually is in until you look at the labels, or take a look at
Lotion,
what. Right.
face cream. And that's
Mm-hmm.
so um I was a dance teacher. Well, I just coached, like I coached cheerleading and dance, and I had my own dance program and stuff for 11 years. I coached
Right.
kids for 15 years. And bless their little hearts, at Christmas time, they get you gifts, and it's so sweet
Mm-hmm.
and generous. But I remember receiving tons of Bath and Body Works
Mm-hmm.
lotions and
Oh
body
man.
sprays and all of that stuff. Okay. And I mean, buckets of it. The fragrance and the chemicals in Bath and Body Works products,
Mm-hmm.
guys, like if you own any of that stuff, throw it
Toss
away.
it.
All of it. All of it. Like, there's been studies done on it, like that is cancer causing, like
Yeah.
hormone disrupting, like really bad stuff. So I can say with fabric softener, because I know a lot of people are like, well, what am I gonna do? I buy tea tree essential oils from
Mm-hmm.
Walmart, like the biggest jar. I don't know, it's like where the band-aids are at or whatever. You can get them like in different spots, but because it
Right.
does disinfect the skin, like you can get it like in the first aid section. I get the big bottle. I shake that in to my softener thing in my washer, and then I put a scoop of baking soda on top of it.
Hmm.
That is what I use for my fabric softener. Because I know a lot of people, well, what are you going to use? Nothing. Like the clothes feel hard. I was like, I
Right.
don't have that issue by using some essential oils and some baking soda. I mean, if you have an allergy to baking soda, obviously don't use that. Don't go that route.
Right.
But because a lot of people don't know what to replace
Right.
their
Hmm.
their stuff in. Is there any other like Instagram channels that I could think of some that show you swaps, which I always like. The Food
Yeah.
Babe, I think, is one of them that I really
Hmm.
like. I'll try to link some of this stuff below. She does a lot of like if you're eating Doritos, like you should
Hmm.
switch to this one, things like that. And the same with fragrance and soaps and whatnot. So are there any other channels that you really like on Instagram or anything to kind of direct people to?
Yeah, so I actually really have been following her for a while now. The account is called Raising Well Kids.
Mm,
She's
follow.
amazing at showing like swaps for pretty much everything, food, um, first aid, anything in your medicine cabinet, right?
Yes.
Sunscreen, because that's another big one. Um,
Oh yeah, we don't wear sunscreen. It's
no,
like
neither do
we don't
we.
wear. I saw your little reel on it, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna make that." I am an affiliate with Earthly Wellness,
Okay,
and
I love
they
them.
have. I love Earthly Wellness. I just have a link below. I don't think anyone uses it, but it's down there. But I don't know. I'm just like, oh, you can be an affiliate. Let's be an affiliate. Then I just like
Right.
forget about it. I was like, I don't ever do it or anything. Um, but I love their sun shield, which is just like
Okay.
avocado oil, like coconut oil, like it's just these oils that have natural. And I know, and that's another thing that you're never ever taught, right? You're just always
Hmm.
taught like you go to the store, you buy standard sunscreen, you put that all over, and that's going to protect you from the sun. Um, but it actually promotes skin cancer. It doesn't
Hmm.
actually, and you're not burning, but again, you're putting these weird chemicals that your
Hmm.
body absorbs. It's a big deal. And so, um, yeah, so I love their sun shield. It comes in a stick or which we do like on the face. It
Hmm.
does kind of smell a little wonky and it's like green when it comes out. So it looks a little
Hmm.
scary, but you're not like white all over. You're nice and moisturized.
Okay.
And these natural oils have SPF in them. And
Hmm.
again, it's like, it doesn't matter if you, and also with the sun thing, since we're talking about it, eating a lot of processed foods,
Hmm.
the oils, um, eating the standard American diet is going to, and I just shared it. I think I maybe shared it off of your page, or you shared it off
Hmm.
another page, and I shared it off of your page today
Yeah.
about the sun.
Right.
And I've known for quite a while now that, these processed chemical foods that we're eating all the time is the reason why we're getting sunburned.
Hmm.
Some people do have lighter skin and they do get right melanin in your skin protects you from burning, so the darker you are the natural more sun protection you have. Okay. And not whether it's a holistic product, a natural product, whatever it is, um it's not going to protect you 100% from ever
Right.
getting burned. Like you got to go in the shade, you maybe have to put a hat on, you might have
Hmm.
to put on a t-shirt, things like that.
Right.
Again, I just feel maybe it's an American thing, I don't know, like people just like, oh, I bought this crunchy oil sunscreen and my kid's scorched. I was like, no, you got to use common sense too. Like the
Right.
sun never stops. Like you got
Right.
to shade a little bit or apply a lot. Um, but yeah, I don't know. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's exactly what you said. Like I just shared it off of his name is Dr. I don't know how to pronounce it. Dr. Pompa.
Okay.
Dr. Pompa.
I'm terrible
And
pronouncing people's names. It's all good.
I'm like, I know how to spell it, but how to say it, I don't know exactly how you're supposed to pronounce it. But he did a video on where sun cancer actually comes from.
Yes.
And I remixed it last night. And that's exactly right. Like all the seed oils that you're ingesting, all of the processed foods, like our diet, and it works both ways. If you have a horrible diet, you're going to burn easier when you're going outside, regardless of whether or not you're wearing sunscreen. And then if you have a healthier diet and incorporate foods that actually help with like that production in your skin to give you more protection, there's a less likely chance that you're going to burn, right? And like I
Yes.
said in the description there, is that like my son has always had a clean diet. We've never really like, he doesn't eat candy, he doesn't eat, like junk food. And he's never burned, and he gets super tan during the summer because we literally live outside, right? And I've never had to worry about him, and we don't use sunscreen when we're going out there. He just kind of hangs out and does his thing, and then he's fine, right? I, on the other hand, when I notice that I'm not eating as well as I'm supposed to be, I will burn almost immediately, it feels like. Whereas when I'm eating better, I'm not burning as much. And again, we don't wear sunscreen. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know that that's necessary. I think most things you need to address internally before using like topicals or anything to try to mask what it is that you're trying to prevent or
Yeah, I completely
halt,
agree. So
right?
I learned from Dr. Barry that there's a study out there, or several or whatever, that so people who live close to the equator,
Mm-hmm.
that statistically have the lowest amount of skin cancer.
Mm.
They're outside all the time. They're always in the sun. And so they have the lowest amount, but you would think, based on how the American culture pushes, like, stay out of the sun, put on sunscreen, like all the things, you would think they would have more skin cancer. Well,
Right.
the most amounts of skin cancer actually occurs like up in like Scandinavia, like
Mm.
Norway, Sweden, like higher up towards the poles or down wherever, wherever gets the least amount of sun during the year, and people aren't actually in the sun. And they're getting skin cancer in areas that are least exposed to the sun, which is really
Wow,
interesting.
that is interesting.
I'm just gonna be like on your butt or something, like,
Right.
so I just thought that was so fascinating. He's like, the sun doesn't cause skin cancer. He's like, it's all the other stuff that we are putting on our bodies or consuming into our body.
Mm-hmm.
Because the sun just has, we go to Florida. The last 2 years we've gone to Florida in February, and it's just so amazingly energizing.
Mm-hmm.
Just we love the sun. I live in northern Illinois, and
Mm-hmm.
so, we get all sorts of kind of weather, and it's been gloomy upon gloomy. Today's like the first sunny day in ages. I was like,
Yeah,
I can't wait to go outside, and I like swung open the curtains behind the computer here. I was like, let the sun just like bask on me.
yeah.
Um,
We moved from
but
Chicago a couple years ago, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
right. It's cold and all this. But yeah, so sun thing. So let's go back to fragrance. Would have been the first thing that you would get
Mm-hmm.
rid of. What would be the second thing you would try not overwhelm people with?
So the second one would definitely be food, like what you're eating, I think is a huge, I don't know, it's important what you're putting in your body, right? And I feel like a lot of people rely on processed, easy foods out of convenience, but we're really doing so much damage when we're doing that, right? When we're just eating processed foods all day,
Mm-hmm.
every day. So I think chipping away at that and eliminating processed like snacks for one, because that's, I feel like what kids live off of now
Is
is just
snack.
like processed
It's
junk
not the
snack
actual
foods.
meal, like breakfast,
Right,
lunch, dinner. Like, it's the constant eating all day, which is
right.
horrible for your metabolism and all this stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, you can't actually, you're not giving your body a chance to digest and process all the foods that you're giving it, right? When you're just snacking on all that all day. But yeah, if I could say one other thing aside from fragrance, it would be specifically snack foods and the processed snack foods. So like if you're gonna give a kid a snack, like why not a piece of fruit or
Right.
a vegetable or something like that, right? To get them
Yeah, we're always like whole foods. It's
exactly.
so easy to like buy a bucket of goldfish. My kids used to eat goldfish. I do have videos on the channel. I can try to link them below, of how we went through the process of eliminating processed food with our kids.
Hmm.
Like, we let them eat it, but once it was gone, we never bought it again.
Right.
Like, we just did not replace it. like that. And
Yeah.
we kept talking about like, this isn't real food. This is
Hmm.
actually chemicals and fake stuff labeled as food, but it's actually not food. Um, yeah. So like snacks, we like to, I'm always like cheese,
Hmm.
hard boiled eggs. If your kids will eat hard boiled eggs, or I'll be like, scramble yourself. But my kids are old enough to be like, go scramble yourself an egg. I don't care.
Right.
Fruit, right? Whole food, like fruit. Yeah. It's mostly fruit, cheese. My two of my girls like hard boiled eggs. My son doesn't like hard boiled eggs.
Hmm.
And then nuts. I let my kids eat nuts. I
Hmm.
occasionally eat nuts too. Um, and yeah, or we'll do like the organic. I like the Stony Field organic grass fed like yogurt tubes.
Okay.
Um, that's only if it's like a really hot day. We call them yogurt popsicles because we freeze them. And
Hmm.
so I don't buy Go-Gurt. We don't buy the
No,
Yoplait.
that's like
Don't do that, you
that's a
guys. Like
negative.
it, like full of dying. I'm like, oh, you know. Um, and so, but back to like the food, because I've said this a lot on my channel. It's like when you're starting to feed your kids whole foods, um, things that have high nutrient density and
Hmm.
protein is a big one.
Yeah.
They eat less because a lot of people will say, like on my videos, how can you afford to eat carnivore? Like meat is so expensive. Like, how can you afford this? And like my grocery bill hasn't gone up. It's just we eat until we're full of
Hmm.
animal products. And then of course my kids, fruit or two and nuts and whatever. But they don't snack at all in between meals unless they are highly active. In the summertime, they're swimming all day. Like, go have an apple, like they may have like an apple in between or some cheese sticks in between or whatever. And that's fine. They have growing bodies. They should do that. Um, they don't drink juice. We personally choose not to drink milk. Like, not that
Hmm.
we don't even have, I could get raw dairy, but we know dairy triggers my son's, or milk, very specifically, milk triggers my son's eczema. So
Mm.
we don't drink it. um, and so, right, it's just they eat less in between. And then you have to just, and I feel as adults, right, that ate the standard American diet, you actually have to tell yourself, am I hungry right now? I say
Hmm.
that to my kids all the time, because Easter just happened, right?
Right.
And got some clean candy, if there's anything with, as clean as we could do it for the holiday.
Right.
I was just like, are you really hungry? Like, do you feel anything here? Like, are you starting to, get moody? Like, are we actually hungry? Like, you have to reteach
Hmm.
hunger cues because we're just used to, if there's food there, you just eat it.
Right.
You go to a friend's house, there's food there.
Hmm.
It's not because you're hungry. It's just because there's something out there. So you're
That's the
just,
thing to do. Yeah, it's mealtime. So this is breakfast, this is lunch, this is dinner. And that's a thing too. Like you look on a lot of people's like videos, especially ones about kids,
mm,
you see a lot of like, okay, my kid is gonna eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, and two snacks in between, sometimes a third snack. And it's just become like the norm, right? For
yeah,
kids to eat so much that like we're kids are very intuitive. I feel like people don't realize that sometimes they can feel in their bodies when they're hungry. And I feel like it's become within our like normal in our culture to force our kids to eat something when they're not
yeah,
hungry, right? Just because this is the thing to do. But if you actually allow them that space to feel whether or not they actually want to eat, they tend to eat better, they make better choices. And I don't know. It's just like they're in a better mood altogether, I feel like, because they're listening to their body.
you nailed it on the head. I feel definitely because as an American culture, right, a kid will be playing outside, inside. They're like really into whatever they're doing. And then we're like, hey, Susie, it's snack time. Or, hey,
Right.
come eat. I was like, why did you just interrupt them in the middle of whatever they're doing, playing outside, playing blocks, doing whatever? because you think they should be eating
Mhm.
right now.
Right.
Kids know what's going on with their bodies. They will come to you and say, "Hey mom, I'm hungry." Like,
Right.
um and so they're not feeling hungry if they're involved in activity. I know for myself, if I'm busy doing stuff, I don't get hunger cues. That's good. My body's fasting in between whatever I'm eating, and that's good for your digestion and all
Right.
the things, right? And so yeah, I definitely feel like as adults and the habits we've learned,
Mhm.
we're always saying, "Oh, they need to eat. They always need to eat something." It's like, no, they
Right.
don't know eat
You're
something.
stuck. I'm
Uh
sorry.
oh, it's okay if he needs
You need
help.
help?
Okay. So I think we kind of we definitely addressed like my next question about food and do you get any flack from like family or friends about being restrictive in what you give your kids?
100%. It's really weird because before I knew any of this stuff, I was just eating whatever. Like I said, I grew up on the standard American diet, so I never
Me
questioned
too.
anything. And recently I started to realize that my grandmother specifically, because my mother never really cooked, we just ate fast food all the time. And my grandmother, who did a lot of cooking when she lived in the same area, was using aluminum pots to cook everything in. And I had no clue until I had him. And I'm like, oh, I don't know that I want to eat anything out of those pots because everything's leaching. And so now anytime that we'd see her, it'd be like, we're gonna hold off on eating, or he can't have this because we don't give him processed foods, or no, he can't have candy because we just don't think that it's necessary for him to have candy. Like, he doesn't need it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, what did he do wrong that you're not allowing him to have this? Or let him be a kid, like let him live a little. And it's it's like, what does that mean exactly? Let him live a
Yeah.
little. Like, I'm trying to give him a healthy life so he can live throughout his life, right, without issues. And I'm all for, like you said, giving treats here and there with like special occasions, or like
Holiday, you get invited to a birthday party.
right,
Like, yeah.
right. Like, I'm not that mom that's like, no, you're never going to have candy ever in your life, because like you said, that's going to cause that association with food, right? And I don't want that. I know how that works because I've seen it within like my family and how the kids grew up. So he's not restricted to that extent, but like now it's I don't know, it's just so weird when people question you that way and make you feel, they want to make you feel crazy, or they act like you're crazy for the decisions that you're making.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. And to each their own. I'm not going to judge you for doing what you do, however you want to feed your kids, or whatever you want to give to your family, right? But
Could we have the same
likewise.
courtesy?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I totally get it. So we see my grandmother every Tuesday. So my kids get to spend time with their great grandmother every Tuesday. So we go and we eat lunch with grandma. And yeah, she, again, we've been doing this almost 2 years now with the food specifically. And she definitely, and I don't know if it's a grandparent thing or I mean, she's like 80, she's gonna be like 84 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
She grew up eating eggs and bacon and making her own meals and all the things. But yeah, grandparents like giving your kids like endless junk food because
Mm-hmm.
it's like a form of love, right?
Right.
At least that's how my grandparents were. But yes, we've definitely gone around and around. And my grandma's got no problem telling me how she feels about which I love and respect about her. My family has no problem letting me know how they feel about things. And so she's like, your kids are gonna be, I don't know, what is she? I don't know. They're gonna have when they leave your house, you're just gonna eat all of it. And I
Yeah.
said, they're gonna be old enough to make their own choices
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna suffer the consequences of that. And that's going to be fine. I said, but I'm going to try to teach them proper nutrition and good eating habits while they're
Mm-hmm.
here. Um, but I was like, but no, they can't eat donuts. My grandma is totally addicted to sugar, and so
Mm.
she's got the donuts and the candy and all the things. And I'm just like, no, thank you. No, thank you. Like we eat hot dogs and bread cheese every Tuesday. That is what we eat at grandma's house. Hot dogs and bread cheese. I'll let my kids drink some milk when we're at grandma's if they want to. And then we bring the yogurt popsicles, right? The organic
Mm-hmm.
whatever as like their treat because grandma's like dying to give them Werther's caramel candies and powdered donuts. Like she's just like, please let them have it. And I'm like, no. I was like,
This
I
is
know
for
the
you,
fallout's
grandma, not for them.
I know. And I was like, I know what the fallout's gonna be. It's gonna be horrible behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be anxiety. It's going to be, meltdowns and diarrhea and
Mm-hmm.
tummy problems. I was like, I know what this is going to be. I was like, I know you're coming from a sweet place. Um, but yeah, and it's so hilarious. So she, on 2 or 3 occasions now, has been like, Kim, I've been doing research on that carnivore diet that you do. And you know what comes up? Says it's like the most nutritious thing for children and like eating whole foods. And she's like, I couldn't believe it. I found all sorts of articles saying how good that meat you eat all the time and all these things uh, are. So you're doing a good job. And then we'll come back next week and she's like, oh, I can't believe you won't let your kid have barbecue sauce. Like how, oh my gosh. She just goes back and forth. Like she just can't. Again, she's like 84 years old.
Right.
I don't hold it against her. She's had a whole life of just doing what she's doing. She's still
Mm-hmm.
alive. She's still kicking. Again, I don't care what she eats. I was like, we have to find balance here, right? I'm like, Grandma, when it's Christmas, when it's Easter, when it's Thanksgiving, when it's a birthday, I was like, they can have some cake. I was like, but
Right.
they don't need to eat donuts every single week. Every
Right.
Tuesday, they don't need donuts. I was like, it's just not good. It's just not good. And especially if you're on a healing journey, right? Whether it's with your
Mm-hmm.
children or for yourself, those cheats, oh, they set you back months. I have
Mm-hmm.
videos on my channel where I ate strawberries at Easter, last Easter, with homemade whipped cream. And my skin, just like my rosacea, flared up for 6 whole weeks, like horrible, all over my face. And I was just like,
Yeah.
see, obviously, I have more of a sensitivity to strawberries than other people, but I didn't know. You don't know
Mm-hmm.
until you eliminate it from your diet and then you take a risk. It's a holiday. I'm going to have a slice of pie. I'm going to have some strawberries and cream. And then you're like, oh crap, can't eat that?
Yeah, right. Your body's telling you exactly what's going on. And a lot of times we don't listen. We ignore it.
Yes,
Like this is
absolutely. Or, um, or I feel we just chalk it up as I'm getting old.
mm,
I have all these aches and pains because I'm getting older. I'm like, no, you have like crazy joint inflammation
yeah,
because you eat French fries every day for lunch. Again, go ahead and eat it. I'm not gonna, I'm not saying you're a horrible person because you want to eat French fries. I'm not
right.
saying that, but could there be a true correlation to
Mm-hmm.
what whatever. Same with like what you're spraying on your kitchen counters and
Right.
whatever else to clean it. It has long term, it's like that slow poison, right? It's the
Mm-hmm.
slow poison that gets you to where you are. Um, and so, okay, we've talked a lot about this. And you know what? It's been about an hour, which is awesome. We don't want to take it too long. I would love to have you back on and
Yeah, of
chatting.
course.
I want to leave you with the last thing. If you could give any advice to our viewers on anything crunchy, holistic, eliminating, like just being healthier, where to start, whatever, what would you like to leave the audience with?
I think the big one that has also been coming up a lot recently, just in general within the community, is using discernment because
Mm,
there is a lot of information out there. Everybody's going to have a different opinion on what they believe is right, what they believe is crunchy, or what they believe is holistic. There's not a right or wrong way to go about it, and everybody's journey is different. And I think when it comes to delving into it and trying to figure out where you land with it and trying to find that balance for yourself, it's using discernment when you're getting the information that you're getting. So that's going to be, honestly, if somebody could have told me that before I started getting into everything, you get one person saying that seed oils is bad. This person says seed oils are good for your heart health, right? So it's like you really have to use discernment when you're trying to figure out where you fall and everything.
I think that's great because there is a lot of judgment
Mm-hmm.
anywhere. It doesn't matter what community you're a part of. You know, you're not crunchy enough or,
Right.
or crunchy or whatever. It's okay to be different than other
Mm-hmm.
people. And I know we're always comparing each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but do what sits right for you, do your research. And I love that discernment because it's a long journey. Again, you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to be perfect 1 week into it. Take years
Right.
of thought and slow transition. So
Mm-hmm.
this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I hope we get to talk again, and I wish you guys abundant blessings and health, to
Likewise.
you and to your son and to your husband and just your whole family. Like I wish you just so much blessings on your journey. And you have your Instagram of 50 Shades of Crunchy, which I loved your page name.
Play on words.
I loved it. I loved it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna like this one. I'm gonna like this page. We're gonna click on that. So I will link all your information below. So that's where people can find you, 50 Shades of Crunchy on Instagram. You have a wonderful following there. And I just love how honest you are.
Mm-hmm.
Just and you're not like pressure, like you got to do this again, just
No, that's,
right.
yeah,
Discernment.
all
Like
about
if
discernment.
I can help you, great. If you don't like what I have to say, great. Just like move on. And so I hope everyone got nuggets of information in here to help them on their health journey. And so again, thank you for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope we talk soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.